Hello, good evening. Welcome to Saturday Night Me, which, contrary to what you might think about what Saturday night is for, going out, being out, doing stuff, I firmly believe staying in is the new going out. And so I'm home tonight. I'm with you. If you're joining me, if you're also home, welcome, welcome. And I'm really glad to be here. If you're just sort of stumbling upon me now, I am Lauren Lefkowitz, executive leadership coach, former workaholic, people pleaser, perfectionist, still working on all of those pieces. But I've come a long way, and I have set for myself a 21-day live challenge, and today is day 17 of 21. And I feel a little bit like I'm in the, in like marriage, there's like, they call it like a 7-year itch. And I feel like I'm in the 17th day live itch. I woke up today thinking about what I wanted to talk about tonight, and was initially thinking about talking about what I posted this morning, which was that changing industries doesn't mean that you have to start your whole career over. And then I thought, that's a bigger, more serious, maybe like a series topic. And I really want to talk about it, and I want to give it the time and attention and love that I think it deserves, because every time I talk about how your career change doesn't have to mean that you start all over again from the bottom, there's a lot of discussion about it, and a lot of feelings of people who have not had the best luck. I don't know if luck is the right word, but haven't gotten to where they want to get to, or have taken a step down in their career to move up. And I want to give that topic some real, like, meaty conversation, maybe talk with other people in the room with me, in the Restream room with me. So stay tuned for that. And if you're watching this on the replay, or you're watching with me live, tell me what you'd like to hear about in terms of career change, and the philosophy around changing industries, meaning or not meaning that you also have to give things up, like money, title, level, managing people, all those kinds of things. And so that's not why I'm here tonight. Tonight, I'm sort of phoning it in. I'm sure you've had those days at work where you're like, I'm just going to do the easy stuff. I'm going to do the stuff I don't have to think about a ton. I'm going to do the stuff that doesn't feel too serious. I'm going to keep, flicking my mouse so it moves, so I look available on Teams or Slack or wherever there's a green dot in my screen. There are some days when we just can't get it together to do like 100% of anything. So that was today was one of those days for me. I actually had an awesome day, spent some time outside with a friend, and just had some really good, positive, energizing conversation, building our futures, and beautiful, beautiful weather. So amazing. Such a beautiful day. So I thought about, like, what can I talk about tonight that's not too serious, but also is relatable. And Hector is here. Thanks so much for coming, Hector. Keep up the great work, Lauren. Yes, I love the encouragement. Thank you. And if you are joining me, I love the comments. I love to have a conversation. I will interrupt myself to answer your questions. So please, hang out. Hector and I have mutually admired each other's glasses on occasion. And if you look at his profile picture, awesome glasses. So I'm going to just tell you two stories about early career Lauren Lefkowitz. I look back now and I want to go give me a hug for both of these occasions. And in both occasions, and there's nothing disgusting in either one of these stories, but in both of these occasions, I would like to walk me to the restroom. And And I'll tell you why. So I'm going to tell you story number 2 first, because I didn't learn from story number 1 that I was allowed to do stuff. And so story number 2 is like almost funnier to me. And so this is maybe 2 or 3 years into my career. And I had 4 careers before my current career. The first one was as an assistant, as a meeting planning assistant for a nonprofit, a trade association. That's where the first story is from. The second job was at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, where I was started in accounting, and then I moved into fleet services, which was business to business car, truck, and van leasing. That's where the second story comes from. And then I moved into HR for 20 years. So that stuck for quite a while. And now I'm an executive leadership coach and on my own. Okay, so let's get to the stories. So story number 2 is I was brand new in the fleet services department. And my job was account manager. And so the account executives sold to the companies to be our account. There was an account coordinator specialist, I'm not sure what the title was, who did the like logistical work of building models of cars, trucks, and vans in a software system. And then my job was the customer relations, the conversations about renewing vehicles. This is boring. Sorry, I'm just giving you a little background. And then upselling, right? So if the company had 20 vehicles with us, were there any other vehicles that they needed? If the company had was filling their own gas, I would try to sell them gas cards. I was terrible at it. I'm like just as terrible talking about what it was because I was awful at it. It was a 6-month mistake of a career. And so I was going out on my very first sales call with my boss, who was, I think, a vice president. And his job was to oversee the account executives, the account managers, the account specialists or coordinators. And he was, I'm not going to say mean. He was a little like, a little stiff, a little demanding when you didn't know what you were doing yet, which was a little bit intimidating in my early mid-20s. And so I really wanted to do well. And I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I'd been in the department for just weeks. And so we were taking this trip, and this is back in the early 2000s. And so I printed out a MapQuest set of directions and printed out all of the specs for the trucks and vans that we were presenting to this company. And it was down in Virginia and we were in Maryland. So we left super early. We left a lot of time. And MapQuest took us to the wrong place. And it was the right place, but it was at the wrong height. So we get to the place and it's telling us to turn right, but we're at a guardrail that like is at the end of a road. And we can see that the office we need to be in is like down here. But there's no actual way to get down here without jumping. And, you know, that's not a great idea when you're in heels and a skirt. So we realize we're now in the wrong place. And to get like around and back to the office that we actually need to be in, we sort of have to figure it out. There's no GPS. There's nobody to really give us directions. It's sort of an industrial area. And so we make our way there and we get to the meeting exactly on time. And my boss is mad at me because the directions are wrong. Clearly, there's no way I could have known the directions were wrong. So like that's grown-up thing number 1 is like, don't take responsibility. You know, take responsibility for fixing stuff, but don't take responsibility for like a map system giving you the wrong directions. It's not like I read them wrong. And so we get to this office and he's like, we're always supposed to be 10 minutes early. He's really frazzled that we're now on time. And I have to pee. And so we've now been driving around. I'm nervous. I'm a little bit upset that I didn't get it right. And boy, do I have to pee. And so we go in, and because we're exactly on time and because he's a little bit annoyed, I don't ask to use the restroom. We just go into the meeting, and I'm like, I'll go after. It'll be fine. Be great. Fine. So we get through this meeting, and as we're going through the meeting, it turns out that the person who was building the specs for the vehicles did it incorrectly. And she missed some of their regular specs. And so I'm now brand new, trying to present specs that I don't even understand. And the company owner that we're meeting with is telling me that his van needs shelving and his van needs this, and why don't I have the branding, decaling outlined in there. So clear, there was a bunch of stuff wrong. And it was sort of I'm sorry, I'm new, I'm working, we'll get it all to you tomorrow. We'll fax it over, right? So I'm embarrassed. I am seeing that my boss is annoyed. His face is red. He's frustrated with me, at me, embarrassed in front of this guy. And boy, do I have to pee. And so we end the meeting. The meeting was maybe like 45 minutes. I mean, it was not fast. And all I can think about is that I don't want to lose the ability to not pee right there in my seat at this conference table. And we're getting up to leave. And, we're shaking hands, and we're both still apologetic that things didn't go as planned. And I asked to use the restroom on the way out. And the annoyance on my boss's face that I would need to attend to my own personal hygiene was like spoke volumes. Now, if you've heard me talk about this boss before, he was also my boss on 9/11. And I'm grateful that my family and friends were all safe. But the morning of 9/11, when we were trying to all get in touch with each other, he came to my office while I was on a cell phone, a landline, and email, trying to connect to ask me if we were going to get any work done that day. So that gives you a little bit of a flavor of how kind and empathetic he was. So I use the restroom. I'm so relieved that I haven't just like peed through my skirt. And we get back in the car, and he said to me, "That was not appropriate." And I said, "Which part?" And he said, "We should have just gotten in the car. It wasn't a good meeting, and you stalled us from leaving by using the restroom." And in that moment, I felt such shame, because I felt like he was the grown-up in the room and he knew how work worked. And I felt shame that I had to use the restroom, which is like, now I think about that, and what a crazy thing. But I learned a lesson that day, which was he was going to be mad at me no matter how it went, because we were not early for the meeting, because the MapQuest directions were wrong. And I have the right and responsibility to look out for myself and tend to my own needs. So humans of the world, humans in the work world, if you have to use the bathroom, if you are nursing, if you are not feeling well, if you need to go get a tissue, do that. Those are normal human needs, and you are allowed to have normal human needs and just like be a person. Don't ever be afraid to ask if you can use the restroom, and to ask where it is. If you're in your own office, to excuse yourself and say, "I need to use the restroom, I'll be back." This also applies if you're upset about something at work, that you have the right to say, "I'm going to excuse myself and I can restart this conversation in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or I'm really upset and I need to remove myself from this conversation. Can we reschedule it for another time?" So that story came out a little more serious than I imagined it would. But it was a great lesson for me, and it's something I always tried to like emulate for my staff, for anybody who worked with me. Like, if you need to take a break, if you need to stand up and walk around, like, you're a human being with human needs. You take care of you. We can take a break at any time. So that's one story. But the funnier story, which actually is funny, so here we go. I'm gonna actually get a little bit lighter now. Was my first business meal, and I was working for a trade industry in plastics, and we were a meetings team for machinery and mold makers. If you know anything about plastics, maybe that's exciting for you. And we worked very closely with a trade show department. And our president and CEO had invited our two teams out for lunch. And here I am. This was my first job out of college. The job I worked prior to this was in a warehouse kind of setting for herbal products that was above a post office. Like, we wore crappy shorts and t-shirts to the office and did customer service. We were blending batches of herbs, so it was like a messy job. And now I was going into like a professional office grown-up setting, and there were no real examples of this. I mean, my dad was in an office environment while I was growing up, but once in a while I went to visit him, but nobody knew what the work world really was like. I'd worked a summer job in an office, but I was tucked away in a corner sorting paper. So I'm trying to act all grown up and be excited, and add to that I'm a picky eater. And I am 45 years old now, and I'm still a picky eater. So I'm sorry for anybody who comes out for a meal with me. We're going to be eating pretty simply. And I eat vegetables. I have a sort of a light normal palate. And so anything that has spice, which includes too much pepper, Cajun spice, curries, anything that has, even honestly, I'm sorry, Maryland friends, if you throw too much Old Bay on something, I'm it's a little too much for me. So now in my 40s, I've gotten a better palate. It's still not amazing. But back then I immediately worried that they were going to take me somewhere where I wouldn't be able to find something to eat. And it was all just pickiness. It wasn't allergies. It was just pickiness. And so my coworker is setting up the meal, and she says, "Where do you want to go?" And I said, "I'll eat anything except Indian food," because at the time I thought Indian food only was curry. And so she makes a reservation at an Italian restaurant. And the day before the lunch, the Italian restaurant had a flood, and so they closed. And so she said, I made the reservation at this other restaurant, which was an Indian restaurant. And so worried, I said to her, "Oh, but I don't eat curry." And she said, we'll sort you out. They're going to have honey chicken or some kind of plain lamb. You're going to be fine. They're going to have something for you. And so I'm working up the nerve to psych myself up to eat in an unfamiliar restaurant. And we're going to be eating with the president and CEO. Now, I am a CEO now, but at the time I was very entry level, and I didn't know what it meant to be a president and CEO. And I thought my gosh, this guy is super older, and the president and CEO, and the way that his office was set up made him seem even more important, because he had sort of in a railroad, he had an assistant who was the gatekeeper, even internally with the 30 employees we had. And then she had an assistant in front of her office. So you couldn't even get to the assistant to get to the president. And president and CEO had bulletproof glass, which I later learned was because there was some sort of a government agency in that building and on that floor before that company was in there. But I didn't know that. I just thought like, wow, this guy is important. People want to kill him maybe. And he's got 2 assistants watching out for him and taking care of him and protecting him, right? So we all go to this restaurant, and I'm like so nervous, trying to be super grown up. And he's super friendly, but like I've already formed my opinion that he's some kind of bigwig and I should be like revering him. And so we get to the restaurant, we sit down, and the waiter is, helping us sort through the specials and all of that stuff. And he comes over to me, and I said, I don't eat curry. I'm not sure what I can eat. I'm sorry. I'm really picky. And he said, we have honey chicken. It's just plain chicken with honey on it. Like, you'll be fine. Anybody who comes in here who doesn't usually eat Indian food, I tell them to get this, and it's delicious and they love it. Great, fine. So I order that. I'm feeling so much better because I know now that there's something like pretty bland that my palate, my silly, young, undeveloped, inflexible palate can handle. And the meal comes, and this is a nice restaurant. And I've been to nice restaurants since, right? And I choose nice restaurants now. But again, I'm like 21 years old. I'm in my, a grown-up place, linen napkins and all the rest of it, cloth napkins. And I take the very first bite of my chicken, and there is a bone in it that's now in my mouth. And because I wasn't grown up and I didn't know what I was allowed or not allowed to do, I didn't want to spit the bone into the cloth napkin, because like, then where is it going to go? What am I going to keep the cloth napkin like wrapped in a ball in my lap? That doesn't look classy. You can't really drop it on the floor. Like, it's a nice restaurant. If you don't know, and if you're not following the story, and if you're not like yelling into the screen, go to the bathroom, Lauren. That's the answer. That's the secret. That's the big mystery answer, is you go to the bathroom, you spit it out, and you throw it in the trash in the bathroom, and then you come back, because you are allowed to go to the bathroom when you're a grown-up whenever you feel like it. You're allowed to excuse yourself and go to the bathroom. And so I didn't. So I very carefully ate the rest of my meal and had a conversation with the president and CEO and all the team members at the table, with a bone that was probably about the size of a pinky, tucked in the side of my cheek. Now, I've always been good at like faking it and having a poker face and being neutral and not making a big deal of stuff in front of other people. This was like a feat because it was there the whole time. And I didn't do a ton of eating because I was afraid the bone was going to dislodge and something bad would happen. But I took it all the way back to the office with me. We sat back down at our desks. I waited until everybody was settled into their stuff. And then I took it out of my mouth and threw it in the trash by my desk. And I remember thinking, this wouldn't have happened to anybody else. This is only me. And because of that, I always have, when somebody new comes into an organization I've worked for, I have always told them how work lunches work. So I'm always really clear, like, I'm going to pay for this lunch. You don't have to take out your wallet. You don't have to, if you need to get up and go to the restroom during lunch, great. You can do that. If you want to order a soup or a salad, absolutely. We may order appetizers. We may order dessert, just sort of follow the crowd. But you're allowed to talk about not work stuff at a lunch. You're allowed to get up and go to the bathroom. You can be a human being. And people have always really appreciated that, because when you are new, and especially now post-pandemic, when so many people have come to into the work world during the pandemic, when we weren't allowed to go anywhere or do anything, when our stuff is all remote, and you can put your screen on, take your video off and put your sound on mute and run to the restroom. Just so you know, when you go back into an office setting, or if you are already in an office setting and you don't know how it works, just remember you're allowed to be a human being. We've got hey, Catherine, nice to see you. I have food allergies that require I ask a lot of questions. It's frustrating when you have to draw attention to ask questions. Sometimes I can't eat anything on the menu. Yeah, I found that restaurants want to be more accommodating now. A lot of them do. I also know that not all restaurants are super careful. I'm allergic to pineapple, which is sort of an oddball allergy. And pineapple is in unexpected things, like teriyaki sauce often has a pineapple base. A lot of Asian sauces have a pineapple base. So if I don't see that it explicitly tells me what's in the sauce, I always tell them I'm allergic to pineapple. And there have been times I've not, knock on wood, I've not had an anaphylactic reaction, but I do get a serious reaction. I have trouble breathing, and I get like a really itchy, swollen throat. And it's almost always, I have told the restaurant that I'm allergic to pineapple, and whatever ingredients they use have that in there. So I know people with more serious allergies have to be even more careful. And it is challenging, especially if a restaurant is not accommodating and they can't leave anything off if they like prepare stuff. That's my story for tonight, y'all. Can I say y'all? I don't know. It feels weird coming out of my mouth. I need some vernacular for you all, for you people. And I grew up in New York with you guys, and you guys doesn't really appeal to me anymore. So I'm looking for a way to address all people. And y'all is a really like good comprehensive thing, but a Marylander who is formerly from New York doesn't sound natural saying it. So let me know if you have any ideas of how to address a crowd other than like, hey, humans, which makes it sound like maybe I'm an alien. Catherine says your allergy is ginger. Can't even touch your skin. Oh, wow. That is scary. Yikes. It's good that you know what it is. Some people have allergies and they don't figure out what it is, and they just keep having reactions. But yeah, you have to watch out for that. And ginger is also like pineapple is sort of an offbeat allergy. I think restaurants are more used to nut allergies and like gluten and that sort of stuff. Anyway, I didn't really come on here to talk about allergies, but I'm always glad to have conversation in the comments. Anyway, those are my stories. And if you're new to the work world, if you're figuring it out, like, you can ask people what's normal. We've all been new. We've all been young. We've all been unknowing about social norms in a workplace. And some of us have the ability to take cues and translate them. Others of us who are neurodiverse don't have those cues, or don't have don't make the connections between cues. They need a more literal set of instructions, a more literal description of things. And so if you are one of those people, I want you to know, find somebody kind in your office and tell them that you sometimes need a little guidance on stuff, and ask them if they will be your guide on social norms. And that's for neurodivergent, neurotypical, people who are a little bit ahead of you can really help you acclimate to the social norms, the office politics kind of norms. Yeah, Catherine says your self-care is more important than social norms. Absolutely, for sure. So it's a great point, Catherine. So not only asking what the norms are, but also paying attention to what you need. I know in offices that I've worked in, I have had employees who have severe performance anxiety, public speaking anxiety. And I've been in situations where there are either I'm doing a training and there are activities where people have to get up in front of the room and talk, or I've been at conferences where I've been assigning people to do things, and some of those things are public speaking. And I've always tried to be accommodating. In fact, I've always been accommodating. There's almost never a time when I couldn't find some sort of accommodation for the social and business needs of the employees that I've worked with. So, Catherine, such a great point that your self-care is more important than social norms. And the social norms that I was referring to, I think were a little bit more, and I appreciate the distinction, are a little bit more like, what do I do? Right. So me not knowing that I was allowed to just like be an adult and say, excuse me, I'm going to go to the restroom in both of the situations, in both of the stories that I told tonight. Like, that's something that people need to know. Things like, who's going to pay for the group lunch when we go out? Things like, I'm allergic to ginger. Can we not go to an Asian restaurant? Because Asian restaurants often use a lot of ginger. Or can you let the restaurant know that I have a ginger allergy? Or I have a lot of allergies. Can we go to a place that specifically serves this kind of food? Or I'm vegan, or, whether it's choice-based or needs-based, or a combination of the two, you're allowed to speak up for yourself. You may not always get accommodated, but then you'll at least know that you've asked. So I'm going to sign off for tonight, and I will see you tomorrow for day 18 of my 21 days. And I appreciate you hanging out with me on a Saturday night and just kind of listening to a couple of stories from my early careerhood. So have a great night, and I'll see you all tomorrow night. Take care.